Well folks, we're here. What many consider the absolute pinnacle of classic Sonic action, and we've arrived. After 3 mainline games, Sonic the Hedgehog had risen up and become a legend, more than proving himself in the eyes of the world. But he had one more game on the Genesis that we are about to go through today, Sonic the Hedgehog 3. But to avoid mincing words and wasting your time, I'm just going to come out and say it. This is, without a doubt, my personal favorite 2D Sonic game ever made. No questions asked, no other games, not Mania, not Rush, nothing. It deserves every amount of love and attention that it gets from people. It is so good. Without further ado, I present to you Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles for the Sega Genesis. With the success of Sonic 2, there was no question that a sequel would be made. But who would get to make it was something not as concrete. Would the American team at STI get another go? After all, they did develop Sonic 2, so it's only natural that they handled the sequel. Perhaps the Japanese team that was brought over to help iron out Sonic 2 would be the right way to go, as they were the ones to help finalize a game that was about to release in a messy state. And we can't forget the team back in Japan who worked on Sonic CD. All 3 were considered, but at the end of the day, Yuji Naka made the final decision. It will be the Japanese STI that got to create Sonic's Genesis finale, due to the language and cultural barrier that had hindered his work with the Sonic 2 development team. But don't worry all you American fans, the American team got to make their own Sonic game. The painfully average classic, Sonic Spinball. Ouch. Well, with Naka and Hirokazu Yasuhara on board once again, the team knew from the very beginning what direction they wanted this game to go in. What they couldn't do in Sonic 2, they would do with Sonic 3. The level count would be huge, the levels themselves sprawling in scope, and the graphics would be the best the Genesis had ever seen. But all of this came with a cost. The Genesis cartridges could only hold so much data. The team knew for a fact this game would be too big for one cartridge, but they had no idea what they would do to release it all as one coherent package, instead opting to split them into 2 games. There were so many creative ideas that it would take too much time to develop such a massive project. The team brainstormed up 2 games worth of material initially, and it was decided, before the alpha stage I think, that it would make more sense to split it into 2 games. Of course, the team decided Sonic needed another new character to mix things up, with yet another internal contest being held to determine the winning design. In this case, Takashi Yuda's design of a green echidna won out. But wait, says anyone familiar with Sonic, there is no green echidna character in Sonic. Who is this emerald encroacher? Well, it's Knuckles. Before he was finalized, Knuckles was green simply because that was the color Yuda gave him. But the devs realized by having a cool colored character versus Sonic's blue and Tails' warm yellowish orange, Knuckles wouldn't quite fit in. With a simple change, Knuckles was given his now iconic red palette, and the primary color animal trio was born. Another interesting thing about Knuckles' design is the swoosh across his chest. Originally, that wasn't a part of his design, but when Sega and Nike were attempting an advertising partnership, they decided to add the swoosh as a sign of goodwill for the 2 companies. Sadly, the deal fell through, so we never did get to see Space Jam 2 featuring Knuckles, but we did get this sweet swoosh on his chest. Kind of reminds me of a NASCAR now that I think about it. Knuckles, sponsored by State Farm. And finally, onto the music development, which is an absolute minefield to walk through because there are just so many little bits and pieces to uncover and unearth. It's super cool. So, first off, let's get into—
Get on with it! Yes! Get on with it!
Okay. Are you sure, though? I mean, you knew that Michael Jackson—
Get on with it!
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Don't worry guys, I've heard the criticisms that my videos are often a little bit too long when it comes to covering the development of a game, and from here on I'll do my best not to spend as much time covering what went into the product. You guys are here to see me talk about the game after all, not the creation of it. But I will at least slightly cover the music for this game before we jump into it. So, what is confirmed 100% is that Masato Nakamura, the composer for the first 2 Sonic games, was having a successful run with his band Dreams Come True. When approached to compose for Sonic 3, he demanded more money and compensation for any future releases, which would use his music, past works included. Sega declined this deal, opting to look elsewhere for their music. Brad Buxer, Bobby Brooks, Daryl Ross, Geoff, I'm butchering that, Grace, Doug Grigsby III, and Cis Orako are the names featured in this game's credits when it comes to the soundtrack. But as I'm sure everyone knows by this point, it is heavily implied Michael Jackson worked on the soundtrack at some point in development. There's evidence, interviews, musical similarities. The story is a fascinating dive, but one that I cannot possibly cover in a concise manner here, so I will instead leave links in the description that allow for a much more in-depth look at the history behind this game's soundtrack. For us, all we need to know is Michael Jackson might have composed music for this game and is left uncredited. So with the incredible success of Sonic 2, Sega knew that they needed to promote the absolute crap out of Sonic 3. This included releasing the game on February 2nd in the US, which Sega dubbed Hedgehog Day. Not content with a pun, they even had a sort of festival in Puxatawney, Pennsylvania, the home of one of my favorite movies of all time, Groundhog's Day.
I'm a celebrity in an emergency.
It was a massive party, even including the Sonic Macy's Day balloon, and they even set up kiosks at the local schools so kids could play the game. Ask Sonic Twitter to release next Sonic game at my college campus first. The game was released to rave reviews, of course, and while the game released in February for Western territories, Japan didn't see the game until May 27th of that year. Sega was going to try and implement a special limited edition release of the complete Sonic 3 exclusively for Japanese audiences, but when they took too long to create it, the Western version started showing up through import shops, and Sega knew it needed to bite the bullet and simply release the game. And with all the pre-release stuff out of the way, we can finally jump into the game. Is Sonic the Hedgehog 3 as good as I personally have been hyping it up to be, and as Sega wanted it to be? Without wasting any more time, let's just jump into it. And to begin with, the plot of this game is a massive jump compared to the first three games. During the ending of Sonic 2, Sonic and Tails were successful in beating Robotnik and knocking the Death Egg from orbit. In their hubris, though, they neglected to watch the Death Egg falling. If they had, they would have noticed it not only falling onto a strange island, but one that happened to be floating in the sky. Robotnik was shocked by this, but was unable to soak up the moment because as soon as the Death Egg collided with the floating piece of land, it began to fall into the oceans below, creating massive tidal waves as it landed. A few days later, Tails finishes work on a new invention of his, the Jewel Radar, which instantly picks up strange readings of chaos energy in the middle of the ocean. Tails explains this to Sonic, who both finds this strange as Sonic is in possession of the 7 Chaos Emeralds, and the pair decides that it's apt to go investigate, figuring they might discover the cause of the tidal waves while they're at it. On the island, as Robotnik is still gathering himself, he has no way to elevate his Death Egg without enormous power, but even hoping to take the Chaos Emeralds from Sonic is a fool's errand. While he ponders, an unfamiliar figure reveals itself to him, angry about his presence on the island. The rambling red creature introduces itself as Knuckles the Echidna, guardian of the island and the Mastered Emerald that rests upon it. He demands Robotnik leave before things get ugly, but Robotnik is quick-witted and simply tells Knuckles that he was on the island to investigate the cause of the tidal waves, and that he believes this giant egg-shaped machine might be the cause. Knuckles softens upon believing Robotnik, glad his Master Emerald isn't at risk. But Robotnik seizes the moment, warning Knuckles that a certain hedgehog is in possession of the Chaos Emeralds and that he might want to be looking for the Master Emerald to further his power. Knuckles, enraged at the possibility of his home being ransacked, is quick to action and leaves Robotnik to himself, completely unaware of the grave mistake he just unleashed. Sonic and Tails arrive on the island, and Sonic decides to be a show-off, transforming into Super Sonic and rushing ahead of Tails in the tornado. But just as quickly as he's transformed, he's knocked flat on his butt and loses his super state, along with the Chaos Emeralds. Dazed and confused, Sonic can only watch as a laughing red creature grabs the emeralds and dashes off. When the dust settles, Sonic and Tails are quick to assume that Robotnik has to be involved and start the hunt for the emeralds again, the mysterious red stranger, and Robotnik. First off, I'd like to mention something that automatically makes this game better than the original classic games. A save feature. Something that took Mario 1 16-bit game to get, Sonic didn't have until his 4th. But man oh man is it worth it. It makes continues obsolete, as now the only thing that happens when you lose your lives is your score resets, and who really cares about that? Your Chaos Emerald progress is saved to your file, and when you beat the game, you have a stage select on your file, allowing you to go back and collect any emeralds you missed, or just to mess around. Now that's what I'm talking about. In terms of gameplay, we're looking at a very similar Sonic to before. Everything he could do in previous games is here, minus the super peel out, which I don't think anyone is missing, but he does come with some new tools that are, even today, iconic moves of the franchise. First up, the Insta-Shield. This is a simple mechanic. Simply press the A button while jumping to create a quick hitbox around Sonic. What is this good for? Well, it makes reaching an enemy that's just out of range or a more fortified enemy much easier to hit than before. In fact, it's almost required for the Big Arm boss fight at the end of the game, because of just how small that enemy's hitbox is. This is a move exclusive to Sonic, and yes, I said exclusive to Sonic, but I'll get back to that. Other Sonic exclusive moves include elemental shield attacks. Instead of the generic shields from the previous games, there are now 3 options. The fire, bubble, and electric shields all grant 1 extra hit to Sonic and now block small projectiles without breaking. The shields even block elemental attacks of its respective element. For example, the fire shields block flamethrowers and lava. The electric shield blocks the occasional electric move. But by far the greatest shield in terms of nullifying threats is the bubble shield. The bubble shield actually makes it impossible to drown if you have it underwater. This is, without a doubt, one of my favorite Sonic items ever just for this feature. But like I mentioned earlier, Sonic can use these 3 shields for even more practicality. Press the A button once in midair, and instead of insta-shielding, you'll either bounce, dash, or jump depending on your shield. These extra movement options are fantastic, and even allow for Sonic to reach areas he'd have trouble reaching otherwise. Tails is also here, and you can play as him alone with his flight, controllable for the first time by a human player, and it replaces shield abilities and the insta-shield. Or you can play as him with a partner, and you spend a second player that allows Sonic to reach areas he's unable to reach without crazy electric shield jumps or extreme knowledge of the area. Speaking of areas, let's look at them. The level selection in this game is small. Crazy small. 6 levels, each with 2 zones each. Did Sonic Team make the most of a smaller level count? Let's check them out. Angel Island Zone. By far the greatest opening levels in classic Sonic history. We get great level design, gorgeous looking graphics, and visual storytelling that makes the level visually dynamic. Like I was saying in my Sonic 2 review, which had bits of visual storytelling, this game ups the ante and now includes levels switching how they look midway through. Like how on Angel Island, a Robotnik mech gets scorched earth on the place, causing the once lush green forest to become a bright, fiery mess. It's great, and makes for an engaging intro level. Definitely my favorite out of the 4 we've looked over. Hydrosity.
Alright, time out. Sorry to interrupt your scheduled review, but I have to ask this. Is it Hydrosity Zone or Hydrocity Zone? Because I've always pronounced it as Hydrosity Zone. Without voice acting and without anyone confirming it in-game and me not caring to look it up online, I have always put it together in my head as a combination of the words hydro and velocity, Hydrosity. But I can also see the merits of the Hydro City Zone wording, and so I'm confused. It's gotta be one or the other, because obviously they're not gonna make it both. I highly doubt it's a tomato-tomato situation, but... okay, I apologize. It's just Sonic Nerd wanting to vent.
Anyways, Hydro City Zone is the level with the most water in it by far, but thankfully with its rocking soundtrack and fast-paced level design, none of it is boring or painful to sit through. The level is so good that they brought it back for Sonic Mania, so clearly it was doing something right. Marble Garden Zone. I have to be honest, if this level wasn't in Sonic 3, I'm not sure I would like it as much. For me, Marble Garden is a perfectly average level with not much going for or against it, but the boss fight during it is absolutely incredible on the uniqueness scale. Flying with Tails to take down Robotnik? Having grown up with Sonic Heroes and the like, this boss still makes me smile whenever I get to it. Carnival Night Zone.
The barrels weren't that hard, shut up.
Probably my least favorite level in the Sonic 3 portion of the game. Music that is appropriate, sure, but doesn't quite fit the Sonic vibe, and while the level itself is fun, it's so long. Like, even without getting stuck on the barrels as a kid, I lost a life to timing out. There's something no Sonic game until Sonic Mania's Titanic Monarch had been able to do to me before, and that's frankly incredible. Ice Cap Zone. Snowboarding! Man, Sonic sure is cool.
I thought it was funny. So normally ice physics and platformers don't lead to fantastic level design, and I have to be honest, Act 1 is not amazing. Besides the snowboarding set piece at the beginning, it's a little slow, and while I love the music, Act 2 is where this level really shines. The speed is ramped up, the ice platforming is all but removed, and if this level ever reappears, I would absolutely love for Act 2 to be the zone they take inspiration from. Launch Base Zone. In terms of final levels, this one kinda comes out of nowhere. We just pop out of the snow at Robotnik's base of operations. Seems a bit, anticlimactic? Oh well, these two levels are much better than Metropolis Zone thanks to an enemy placement that doesn't encourage me to rip my own hair out, and music that's super funky. Though if I'm honest, it's kind of an easy final level. Like, even the boss at the end is way too easy. There's gotta be something. Now that's more like it. Robotnik pulls out my personal favorite final boss the classic games have ever seen. Perfect in terms of being challenging, but nothing impossible. The game doesn't force you to do it with 0 rings, though don't go into the fight with Supersonic because you lose rings in the cutscene beforehand, and even if you do make it to him with Supersonic, he can damage you, and it even encourages using Sonic's moveset to its fullest. Spin dashing, insta-shielding, this is how platforming final bosses should be designed, taking advantage of a character's natural moveset and making the player use every advantage it offers. After stopping the launch of the Death Egg, and once it plummets to Earth, Sonic just sort of celebrates. Like, dude, I'm pretty sure Robotnik isn't dead. If you could survive falling from orbit, this certainly won't. Okay, credits roll.
Well, that was certainly a short game. I mean, about the length of Sonic 1, now that I think about it. I mean, even Sonic's 2 and CD at least had the decency to show us what happens when Sonic lands. This was just like, oh, hey Sonic, you in the middle of falling? Not like you actually needed to make it out okay for the game to end. Well, just make it an assumption at this point. You're cool, right? I don't know, it just seems kind of weird. Don't know why they'd end the game like that.
That's a mystery.
Ah, of course. It's the second half of the game I was talking about at the beginning of the video that Sonic Team wanted to make. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is only part 1 of a 2-part game. Unlike this video, you guys are stuck with me.
So yeah, Sonic 3 was released to critical acclaim, but most people instantly recognized how short the game was and how abrupt the ending was. Sega was smart though and made sure people were aware of the next game, Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and that it was the second half of the package. Released in October 1994, everywhere except Australia, the cartridge for Sonic and Knuckles looks a little different than your average video game cartridge. For example, the logo is a strip with the game's title and logo on it, which is already strange. But there's a plastic cover on the top that can be peeled back to reveal a cartridge port. A cartridge reader on the cartridge. Yo dog, that's pretty cool. But what is it for? Well, if you plug in certain games, and by that I mean the numbered Sonic titles, you get 3 special games. Sonic 1 will get you Blue Sphere, a randomly generated special stage game with 128,016,000 distinct levels. And people complain about games these days being too short. Sonic 2 will allow for you to play as Knuckles through the entire game, complete with quality of life improvements Sonic 3 introduced to the series. But of course, combining Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles together creates the ultimate classic Sonic experience. Some of you might be wondering, what happens if I don't combine the 2 games, or just want to play Sonic and Knuckles on its own? Well, perhaps most importantly, you don't have a save function. At all. So if you like Sonic 3 and keeping your Emerald progress, this game does not have that. Sorry. Second, as the title says, the only characters you can play as here are Sonic and Knuckles. Where did Tails go? Beats me. Probably saw he wasn't getting top billing as the new character was, and decided to ditch Sonic or something. That would explain his 2 solo Game Gear titles. Back on topic, there's also the matter of the 100% completion ending being locked as well, which isn't as serious a loss for those who aren't hardcore players, but to Sonic fans and completionists, you will most likely want that ending. So, without further ado, let our powers combine. Sonic 3, Sonic and Knuckles, become one.
Isn't it beautiful?
Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles. This is a video game. Everything both games offer is now in one package, creating the ultimate 2D Sonic experience not seen before or since. With 3 playable characters, now including Knuckles, who comes with a new story, a weaker jump but can glide, climb walls, and punch through certain walls that lead to unique pathways. He's basically the new game plus for those who have already beaten the game, and while he's my least favorite to play in this game, don't let that deter you from trying him out. He's still a great time. With Sonic and Knuckles now lending its own levels to the mix, the game becomes an 11-zone behemoth, with other levels even sprinkled in for story missions. Let's say we check out these zones and see if they add or subtract from this package. Mushroom Hill Zone. Insert Mario joke here. Honestly though, besides the obvious mushroom parallels, the lush forest aesthetic is fantastic with music that backs up the environment excellently. It's also a nice breather after the challenge at launch base and a good warm-up for the next zone. Flying Battery Zone. One of the more iconic stages in the game for multiple reasons. Fun level design? Check. Music so good that it gets referenced by outside sources even today? Check. And a stage theme that improves on previous ideas so much that most people look to this as the definitive Sonic airship level? Yeah, I think that'll about do it. Sandopolis Zone. This stage is okay in Act 1. Music-wise, it's okay. Level design-wise, it's okay. The environment, okay. It's nothing special. But Act 2, despite its neat idea of having Sonic becoming Indiana Jones / a Ghostbuster, is the worst level in Sonic 3 and Knuckles by far. Tons of instant death scenarios, ghosts that are hounding you throughout the level, and its poor pacing does not help matters whatsoever. Being honest, I'd love to see the stage brought back to see if we could get a good version of it because the seeds are there. Sonic Adventure 2 even had a pyramid level in it that was not half bad, so it's entirely doable. Lava Reef Zone. The fire shield is your best friend here. Without it, you will be taking pot shots all over the place from lava plumes, projectiles, and lava pools. It's a rough stage for sure, but nothing impossible. Plus, the music is great, so I can at least jam out while getting my butt kicked. This stage leads into the final acts of the game, starting with Hidden Palace Zone. It's a short, hazardless walk to the Master Emerald. But wait, there's Knuckles, the smug loser who's been harassing us this entire journey. Well, now I've got you. This'll be epic. Oh. Huh. That was pathetic. Equally pathetic is immediately afterward, when Robotnik finally decides to steal the Master Emerald to use as the power source for the Death Egg. Knuckles tries to stop Robotnik, but he's knocked on his butt by tasers and out of commission. Sonic and Tails are unable to help, but Knuckles offers an alternative. They can teleport up to the Sky Sanctuary and chase after the Mad Doctor there. They accept, and this leads into a one-act chase through Sky Sanctuary Zone. This is more of a boss rush level than a level. The level itself can be tricky with clouds and rotating platforms offering a different way to traverse, but the real threat is Mecha Sonic. Nah, don't worry. This one isn't nearly as cool as that guy. This one just pilots a couple of Eggman mechs and then tries to take you on directly and fails. Once that's over, you jump, no I'm not kidding, onto the Death Egg for the final confrontation yet again. This time going through the Death Egg Zone. No longer a 2-room stage, these are outright gauntlets with anti-gravity, electrical foolers, and a weird tube transportation thingy, all designed to throw you off your game and kill you. Luckily, unlike Metropolis Zone and Sonic 2, these obstacles are hard, yes, but nothing unavoidable. If you know what to do or observe the stage properly, you should be fine. You will get hit a few times, sure, but that's what rings are for. Finally, we go to the final boss, another Megazord styled after Robotnik, this one bigger and badder than all the others. So big, he initially only uses his hands to attack you. Once you destroy his fingers, he starts chasing you down, alternating between a flamethrower and a giant laser, both easily telegraphed and dodged. The real challenge comes in with the floor behind you constantly falling and Tails. Yes, Tails can be a real heel during this fight, because while sometimes he can damage Robotnik, more often than not, this occurs while you're trying to do the same. If you're midair while Tails hits Robotnik, you will fly right through him and die thanks to intangibility frames. Thanks for the assistance, Tails, this is why we left you out of the titles, you parentless mutant. With Robotnik out of the way, we get the first in what will eventually become a staple in Sonic games, a Super Sonic boss fight. Robotnik isn't quite ready to give up his prize just yet, so he attempts to flee by flying through an asteroid cluster. But Sonic won't have that and throws missiles and his own invulnerable body at Robotnik, eventually causing Robotnik's mech to malfunction, which gives Sonic ample opportunity to grab the Master Emerald and head down to Earth. Sonic loses his super state, though, and starts to fall, similar to Sonic 2. And just like that game, Tails is here to save the day, even towing the Master Emerald behind the plane. With their prize safe, the pair drop the emerald back off at Angel Island and watch Knuckles and the island start floating back into the sky where they belong. Sonic and Tails begin their long flight home, ending Sonic 3 and Knuckles.
Man. I mean, talk about an epic finale to a quadrilogy of games. I mean, you start off from Hedgehog beats Scientist to Hedgehog saves the world. It's so good, and while I know nowadays Sonic saving the world is literally every Tuesday for him, the wordless storytelling that these games provides it is just so simple and effective that people don't even really like the official continuation of the story in Sonic the Hedgehog's 4 episodes 1 and 2. And quite honestly, I agree with them. It's something that I'm glad the Mania team decided to stop doing and just went and did their own thing off of Sonic 3.
But hang on there, I mentioned Knuckles had a story exclusive to himself, I'm sure, and boy is it a doozy. Resting in Mushroom Hill Zone after Sonic and Tails have left, Knuckles is then ambushed by an egg robo who is attempting to steal the Master Emerald for himself. Angered by this, Knuckles turns around, runs back through Launch Bay Zone, Ice Cap Zone, Carnival Night Zone, Marble Garden Zone, Hydrocity Zone, and finally stops at Angel Island Zone. Only to start heading back the way he came to chase down the Egg Robo. I mean, I knew Knuckles was always characterized as being a meathead, but this is a little silly. Okay, in reality, this is just an oversight on Sonic Team. In the Sonic and Knuckles game, the game starts in Mushroom Hill, so this cutscene makes more sense, but they forgot to change it for the complete game, making Knuckles' apparent lack of direction a canon part of his character. Differences in the story cease at this point. The alternate pathways Knuckles has are in-level only, with no different than the stages he plays besides missing out on the Death Egg and Doomsday Zone. His story concludes with the fight against Super Mecha Sonic. It's not the one from Super Mario Bros. Z, stop screaming! Ugh. Anyways, once you beat Mecha Sonic, Sonic comes in with the tornado to help Knuckles and the Master Emerald back towards the ground, and depending on your ending, you either help Angel Island rise into the sky or watch it fall back into the ocean. But we all know which one is canon, so get those Chaos and Super Emeralds, you lazy bum! Oh yeah, that's right, the Super Emeralds are a thing in this game. You might be wondering, what's a Super Emerald? A Chaos Emerald jacked up on a Super Mushroom from Mario? Yeah, basically. Okay, but for real, the Emerald Hunt in this game jumps from 8 to 16 and requires a good bit of exploration through the levels to complete. You need to scour the levels and find a giant ring, similar to the ones at the end of Sonic's 1 and CD, but unlike the trippy maze and bad controls and hard to control UFO mission, these are without a doubt the best special stages in the classic games. Blue Sphere. It's a wacky world of nothing but red, orange, and blue balls. What's the goal? Turn the blue balls red! Just touch them to make them red, but be careful. Contact with a red ball means instant game over. You're on rails again, but thankfully Tails isn't a hassle in these stages, so the only thing you have to blame for a mistake is yourself. On the bright side, these stages are pretty forgiving, and if you want to beat them, most players can on their first or second tries. And with 77 giant rings, yes, 77 giant rings spread throughout the game, you'll have plenty of opportunity to score your next super form and the brand new form granted by the Super Emeralds, still to this day exclusive to this game. Hyper. With Hypersonic, you're just as fast, but now equipped with a mid-air dash you can use to fling yourself in any direction. It even acts as a screen nuke, and that's awesome. But of course, the best ability it grants is the ability to breathe underwater. Still can't save it from crushing in bottomless pits, though. Hyper Knuckles is almost exactly like Hypersonic, but his screen nuke is instead activated by colliding with a wall during a mid-air glide. This makes it less useful than Sonic's, but really, when you're already invulnerable, does it really matter? But by far the most interesting of the new forms is Tails' only canon transformation, Super Tails. Powered by all 8 Super Emeralds, Tails is granted all of the abilities of a super form and buffs to his flight. By far, the best new addition for this is his 4 Flicky friends. They are also super and damage any enemy in the game for 1 damage each. This decimates any boss, and it can even be used to damage those annoying ghosts that appear in Sandopolis Act 2. It's absolutely incredible, and by far the transformation I wish would return to the series. And no, Sonic Mania giving him a yellow glow doesn't count, and no, Sonic Heroes, a bubble is an even more pathetic attempt.
And with that, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is finally finished, and I mean, what else can I say except play the game. If you like old school platformers, if you like old school games, if you like Sonic the Hedgehog, even if you don't like any of those things, please, at least try it. It is so good, you owe it to yourself to try out a piece of gaming history. That is how good I think this game is.
It's rare for me to say a game has stood the test of time with minimal issues. Most Sonic games are criticized with having this issue, but Sonic 3? If it has any problems, they're minor at best. Fantastic in every way, this is a triumph in 2D platforming and a game I will never not look forward to replaying in the coming years.
Oh man, I did it. I finally got through those classic Sonic games I've been meaning to do for the past year. Yes, year. It's taken that long, I know. This first year of school, college has just been a trip for me, honestly. I've been having to get used to operating on a much more intense schedule than I'm used to from high school. So I just wanted to say, you can tell I'm ad-libbing this, but quite honestly, guys, thank you so much for sticking with me through all this. It means a lot from the bottom of my heart. It's absolutely fantastic that you guys have stuck through here. And yeah, if you stuck around for this and the other Sonic reviews and my Paper Mario review, which you should also check out, please, seriously, it means the world to me. It warms my heart so much that you stuck with me all this time. So please, in the comments section, type out your experiences with Sonic 3. If you have played it, tell me what your favorite zones are, what your least favorite zones are, if you got stuck on the barrel so I can insult you for being bad at video games. Honestly, please, I love interacting with you guys, so whatever you can think of, type it out down in the comments below. But now I have to think, what am I going to review next? Perfect.